bit, but as the title says, who is to blame? There's several people that we need to blame, and I want to get stuck into that. We've also got fan cams coming a little bit later on, so we're going to talk about those as well. Now, we've got Jose Mourinho, who's taking a lot of the heat. We've got Ed Woodward, we've got the Glazers, and we've got the players themselves. Let's go through each of those people individually and say what's going on. Now, I've also seen some people saying, massive overreaction, it's one game. I actually disagree. I thought that the performance against Leicester was very functional, and I'm happy to get the victory, but I didn't think we looked great against Leicester. Now, some of that could be World Cup hangover, some of that could be the issues and the frustrations of not having a full pre-season. I understand Jose Mourinho was incredibly upset with how the transfer window went, but the transfer window aside, this 11 was good enough. And Jose Mourinho's probably going to take the brunt of what's going on. Now, there was a lot of talk last week about an unhappy camp. United was clearly trying to set the record straight or trying to get their version of events out there by denying things to certain reporters, which meant that there was a lot of confusion. United don't usually do any sort of denials like that, which makes me think that there was probably some truth in the matter. And from what I'm hearing, it wasn't a happy camp in training last week. And I do wonder, was the unhappy camp being transferred over to the pitch at weekend? Was what we saw this weekend a result of an unhappy camp this weekend? Jose supposedly blown his top over the deliberate leaking that happened over the director of football stuff last weekend, which makes me think that's probably not his idea. Now, if there's a disconnect with the board, and there's clearly a disconnect with the players, I put it to you guys, how does Jose Mourinho turn that around? Because if there's a disconnect between the board but the players are on side, you can make it happen. If there's a disconnect between the players but the board's on side, they're going to back you. But when you've lost the support of the board, you've lost the support of the players, and let's be honest, there's probably a divide that I have no idea where it sits, whether that's 50-50, 80-20 or whatever, about Jose Mourinho as the manager of Manchester United. I see it being very difficult for him to be kept on. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Let's say, what did Jose Mourinho actually do wrong in the 90 minutes of the match? So I thought the starting 11 was very good. A lot of people had called for Ashley Young to come in as right fullback, a little bit more of an attacking threat than the more conservative Darmian. We saw Anthony Martial brought in for the injured Alexis Sanchez, which a ton of people had been asking for. Bay and Lindelof kept together, which is what a lot of us had wanted to see. We also saw Luke Shaw retain his place. I thought he might have gone with a little bit more of a defensive midfield. I thought Ander Herrera might have been a better option over Pereira because of that slightly more combative nature. I hope that's not scared off Jose Mourinho from keeping Andreas Pereira in the starting 11, but I feel it might have done. So from the starting 11 point of view, this was very good. We saw Marcus Rashford probably didn't deserve to keep his place as number 9. Romelu Lukaku was brought into the team. The starting 11 on paper was very, very good and certainly shouldn't have been worried about facing Brighton. But ultimately it was. And ultimately we came up with a similar result that we came up with last time, where it was a turgid performance from Manchester United. We come away with 0 points. When United did go down in the game, and Jose was right in his press conference where he comes out and said it was big mistakes, not these little mistakes, but there were several big mistakes which cost us. What did Jose Mourinho do? He went for it at half time. This is a Jose Mourinho that people keep saying is parking the bus and he's shackling Manchester United and he's got the handbrake on. The handbrake was clearly not on when he takes off Andreas Pereira as a number 6. He leaves the 2 number 8s on and he brings on Jesse Lingard and Marcus Rashford, and the guy goes for it. He absolutely goes for it. Look how attacking that team is on paper. Now that's when I say, at what point do we proportion some of the blame for that performance on the players? Because Paul Pogba, I thought he was excellent in the first match against Leicester. Fred, I thought he was very good. He was woeful. Juan Mata was anonymous. Why we saw Juan Mata taken off. Anthony Martial did not do enough. There was too many players that was absolute passengers. You can cope with a couple of passengers, but there was too many people that was being passengers and being passive in the game. I thought the defence was pretty awful. I thought Luke Shaw looked okay going forward, but defensively there was times that he was arguably in the wrong place. There was stepping out and playing offside when there was no need to. There was just a lot of errors. And the man wearing a captain's armband put in possibly the worst performance that I've seen from him in a Manchester United shirt. So does some of the blame need to go towards the players? Because if you was marking a manager of what he did to try and win the game, he made 2 very attacking substitutions with people that are going to play the United way in Jesse Lingard and Marcus Rashford. And then a little bit later on, he brings on Marouane Fellaini, who actually proved to be fairly effective, despite the fact that we never managed to even create anything of note properly in the second half. And then we've got Ed Woodward and we've got the Glazers. Now there's a lot of talk that the Glazers are seemingly happy with coming top 4 If coming top four costs us 50 to 100 million a season, they're happy to pay that, knowing all the other revenue that's coming in, but they're not willing to invest the 2 to 300 it might require to get Manchester United competing with this very, very good, admittedly, Manchester City side. They're not willing to go that extra mile because they're not in it to win the trophies. They're in it to pay the debt off and maybe make a tidy profit on Manchester United in doing so. And I think they have to shoulder some of this blame. Now, we saw United spend an eye-watering amount of money in the wake of Sir Alex Ferguson retiring. But up until Sir Alex Ferguson retiring, that 8 years of ownership, we had a positive spend on transfers. We hadn't spent money. We'd actually made money on transfers in 8 years. That's an incredible amount of underinvestment when you consider the 100 million plus that has been spent on debt refinancing and payments every single season. If United had spent since 2005 100 million on players rather than on debt repayments, are you telling me that we would even be seeing Manchester City at the top at the moment? I would argue that you're not. With all the extra stuff that's coming on top, as well as that extra 100 million which we've seen nothing from, United would be out of sight. And then you've got Ed Woodward. Ed Woodward is tasked as the CEO of Manchester United for doing the best for Manchester United. But what Ed Woodward does is Ed Woodward decides that he knows better than the number one football expert at the club, which is Jose Mourinho. And he thinks that we've got better footballers at the club than the one Jose Mourinho wants in the transfer window. If you're not going to back Jose Mourinho and you're not going to allow him to build his vision, then Ed, you might as well sit in the manager's chair and call yourself manager. This isn't Football Manager. This is real. And if you're going to back a guy with a couple of 100 million, then you have to bring him the players that he's asking for. Now, in the talk of the Pogba deal taking a couple of seasons to compete, makes me think that you're already playing Football Manager to an extent, and you're already bringing in players that you would like to see at the club for commercial benefits. Now, I understand that Jose Mourinho gets tarnished with he's spent X amount of money, but how many of these signings are truly his? Was Alexis Sanchez what Jose Mourinho wanted to take this team forward? Or was he told, there's a new player, go deal with it? Was Paul Pogba the player that he really wanted to be his midfield general? Or was he told, we've just got a big fat commercial signing, he's a good player, deal with it? That's my question mark, because when we haggle over a couple of million for the likes of Perisic, who after the World Cup we all realise how very special a player he is. And we've got Toby Alderweireld and even Willian that would bring so much balance and experience to this team. Is it fair on Jose Mourinho for us to deny those? Now, I think Jose Mourinho brings a lot of this on himself. He's negative in press conference. He was moody over the entire tour. Maybe he was moody over the entire tour because he'd already been told he wasn't going to get what he wanted, and he foresaw this sort of performance coming from United. Either way, there's four groups of people, from the players to the owners to Mr. Woodward and Jose Mourinho, that have all had a hand in what we're seeing. So those that are saying, is it a massive overreaction to one loss? I would say no. I'd say this is the culmination in a summer of frustrations where we didn't seem to get the business that we wanted done. The frustrations that people already have existing over Jose Mourinho as Manchester United manager, the frustrations over what we're seeing happening at Liverpool and Manchester City, and we see Manchester United going backwards. I think it's the culmination of that, rather than just one poor defeat on the road to a team that we lost against last season. Right, I'm going to come to the comments and see what you guys are saying in the comments. Titus saying, Mourinho not just for money, the players won't change anything. His tactic, missed that, sorry, it was going a bit fast. Always be the team is crap. I completely disagree. This isn't a crap team. This team was the second best in England last season, and there was probably a couple more gears left in us. I don't think we was ever getting 100 points like Manchester City, but Manchester United are being cruelly underrated, and I don't like it, to be honest with you. Freddie's worse, says Riff. The manager is getting backed or sacked. Can't remember the last time I enjoyed a United game, says Rybo. I'm an idiot, apparently. Oh, cheers. Mata was invisible, says Mike. I do agree with that. He was a little bit invisible. Derek says, bring in Zidane, would he want the job? Well, we'd have no idea if Zidane wants the job. There is a lot of talk that Manchester United definitely want Zidane, but what I've got to ask you is, that back four that Real Madrid have had, can you even compare their back four to ours? Do we have a player with the sort of snide leadership that we've seen with Sergio Ramos? Do we have a Marcelo? We don't have players like that. We don't have a Varane. We don't even have a Carvajal. That back four is levels above Manchester United's back four. And that midfield, you couldn't pick a better midfield if you was playing fantasy football than Cruz, than Modric, than Casemiro and Isco as a backup. And then the forward lineup of Benzema, Cristiano Ronaldo and Bale. Yes, Zinedine Zidane won an incredible amount, 3 back-to-back Champions Leagues, probably never to be repeated again. But he did have one of the greatest, if not the greatest player of all time, leading the line for him. And he did have a team that's significantly better with United. Can he do it with this United team? I see no evidence of that at the moment. We need Matic back, says Bambi. I think you will see Matic back as soon as he's in. How good is Jardim? I really like Jardim. Jardim, if I was picking somebody right now, would be probably at the top of my shortlist. But the same thing, can he do it with the players that he's got at his disposal? I would hope so, but we have no idea at the moment. Zidane will attract players of such calibre. Tamin, I think Jose Mourinho, despite what we think, is able to attract players still. But if the board aren't willing to go out there and get them, Toby Alderweireld wanted United. Mourinho wanted Toby Alderweireld. But if Ed Woodward decides that he's not the sort of commercial player that he wants, he stays at Tottenham. Wrong formation, we should play 4-1, 4-4-1. Would probably be better if we played 11 players, I imagine. But yeah, there you go. Oh, he's put it in there now. Would rather Giggs than Zidane. Again, you're looking at someone... If Jose Mourinho with his CV can't do it, that's what I worry about. Because people that have not got that sort of CV, I think are going to struggle. Right, we have got the fan cams from this weekend with Nat. So let's check out what everybody had to say outside the Amex this weekend.
Hiya guys, it's Natalie from FullTimeDEVILS. Disappointing this today. Obviously we just lost 3-2. I mean the penalty at the end, what can you say? It was dire.
50 minutes. He doesn't deserve 50 minutes.
What do you think of Martial then? Do you think, his time's up here?
I mean, Mourinho's given him a lot of chances and that's it, I think. I mean, he just didn't look arsed. I mean, it looks like, when Mourinho finished 10th with Chelsea this season he left, that first half reminded me of so many of the games that they played in that year.
Ollie, what's your thoughts?
1,100-mile round trip, it's a bit disappointing today, to be honest. I don't know what the formation we played. But more importantly, this club has ripped off United fans. Today we've travelled 1,100 miles and they've put the beer up against the price that's actually advertised, ripping the fans off because it's Man United, told that by security.
Maybe the manager needs to be more together with them. Maybe they need to be more together with the team. I think it's all of them. I don't think it's one person. I think it's the whole lot needs to come together more.
Bailly was great at the beginning of last season. He looked a bit sloppy today. It's a tough game, They need to come out. They need to come out like they want to win. They didn't come out like they wanted to win.
The second half was the most disappointing. He's made the changes, and no passion, nothing. I thought Pogba today struggled. I thought Fred against Leicester was excellent today. I thought he really struggled, and just disappointing. I was really confident we were going to get the 3 points today, but.
I mean, what do you see it as? Do you see it as long-term issues, or do you see this as sort of like a blip today?
I see it as a blip, but I think it's because of Mourinho. I think there's too many players there. I think it's dressing room unrest, and I think it's got to do with Mourinho.
What's your thoughts then for the rest of the season? I mean, this is just the start. So what's your thoughts for the whole season?
Hopefully, it's going to get better. That's what I think. I think they'll start coming together. Hopefully, but after today, they need to take a hard look at what they're doing and then come out and bloody play.
Right then, that was the fan cams. Thanks to everybody who come and spoke to us outside Brighton this weekend. Now, there's a few points I'm going to pick up on there, but get your comments in as well, and I'm going to come to the comments after these. So the first one I was talking about there is Tony Marshall, and Nat makes a really good point, is he going to be kept around? Have we seen the last of Anthony Martial? Now, that wasn't the performance of a player that wants to stay and fight for his place at the club. He wasn't on his own yesterday. There was players that you don't expect to leave the club that didn't look like they was here to stay either. But with everything that's going on around with Tony Marshall, I'm still not going to be shocked if he goes before the end of the window. He was pretty anonymous in the game against Brighton. There was also the mention about Bailly as well. For a lot of time, a lot of us have wanted to see how Lindelof and Bailly would do together. In our heads, you're like, all right, yeah, I think this could kind of work. Now, I'd love to know from speaking to an ex-pro or someone like that can tell us how long do these centre-half partnerships take to form, because I don't think they happen overnight. I think they take a little bit of while, probably require a lot of patience, which unfortunately is a commodity in today's game. But I'd really like to know how long do these partnerships need to develop. Obviously, they didn't really get much of that with them on pre-season. So how long are we looking at for this to happen? Because I think there's still a player in both of them. Lindelof, I had my reservations about when we signed him, but I think he's changed opinions on that. He's worked hard on the defensive aspects of his game, and I think there is a player in there that could compete alongside Bailly. There was a lady that mentioned about team cohesion, and I completely agree that there is a massive lack of that. That's what I think was the mood affecting this game this weekend in the camp last week. And finally, the guy that was saying what formation did we play? I think we played a midfield three in the first half. I think when he switched it, we went 4-2-3-1. But I think that we just lacked a little bit of something. We definitely lacked more than a little bit of something. But there you go. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comments. If we didn't get a centre back, we need to go to a back five. Well, who's the X1 that comes in? Amos says, who destroyed Anthony Martial? I don't know, mate. Did he do it himself? Because actually Martial's numbers, when you look at like dribbles, key passes, chance creation, goals, I think maybe even assists, are better per 90 minutes under Jose Mourinho than they was under Louis van Gaal. Who'd have thunk that? Tribal says, I remember I was desperate for Mbappe and loads of people kept saying we've got Rashford and Martial. I think game time at a certain age is massively important. I think Mbappe's taken over them, but I don't think there was much in it at least a year ago. Absolutely not. Only one manager that will stop the rat, and that rat is Simeone. Mate, if people are losing their mind over the defensive first football like Jose Mourinho plays, then Jose Mourinho is a diluted version of what you would get with Diego Simeone. I can't imagine Simeone would work with the attitude of our fans, unfortunately. You've got to give Martial the ball. Well, you can say that about anybody. We had the ball yesterday. We had 66% possession in the first half. We did have the ball. We just didn't do anything with it. Sanchez coming in, destroyed Martial. There's a very real chance that was the case. Don't know why people say people are shit after one bad game, because people love an overreaction, mate. That's why. Zidane will unlock Pogba's ability for greatness. Maybe not. The Glazers are turning to a club instead of cash cow. That's just a translation of poor management. Jazz says, give Cantona till the end of time. I support that, absolutely. Nidge says, Martial lacks intelligence, his movement is poor, always wants the ball to feet, then cuts inside, is easy to mark and defend. There might be something to that, but he was still putting up good numbers. Jamie says, we saw last season players don't turn up against lesser opposition. It's going to happen again. I guarantee we beat Spurs at OT, and it's about time. Do you know what? I have that feeling as well, that we probably do go and get a 3 points against Spurs, and then everyone's like, what does that mean? It might go down a bit like last season did. It just doesn't feel good at the moment. There was times last season, especially early in the season, it felt like there was a bit of momentum to us. There was a bit of positivity. At the moment, it just feels like we're waiting for the negativity to come and bite us all the time. Right then, thank you guys for joining us. We have got United on YouTube back for the Spurs game, so please send us your videos at fulltimedevils@gmail.com so you can be included in this video. We've also got the preview coming out this week for the Spurs game. We've got a debate as always, and we've got the fan phone in on Thursday where we'd like you to join us as well. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for your comments. Please give it a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and we'll see you in the next one. Laters.